Thanks for tuning in to more college football talk on the Our Lads Football Network as we enter week 4 of the college football season. A lot to talk about as we enter mostly conference action for the first time. So there's a lot of that going on. But before we get into our games of the week and everything else, trends and injury updates and our picks, of course, to welcome in Marc Lawrence from playbooksports.com. How's it going, Marc?
I'm doing just fantastic, Greg. How are you doing?
Doing okay. So
Good.
far, so good. The first 2 weeks, we had a good week, week 1. Everything continued for the second week. So it's going to keep our fingers crossed, one more week, and then maybe we've got something going. So,
Let's hope so.
yeah, let's hope so. I must say that I came this close to actually had a negative week in college because of one game. And can you guess the one game?
What probably had to be a bad beat of sorts, I'm going to guess, the way it was prefaced. An ugly finish. Uh, how many bad beats were there, though? Really, my mind
I'll
is
give you
all on.
one.
Give me
Bad
one.
beat on a money line.
Bad beat
That's
on a.
how I went from being up $300 to
Uh-huh.
being a negative 100
Oh
because
boy,
of
what
this one play.
a money line play where a team lost the game. They're going to tell me Boise State?
Mm-mm.
No.
Well, it had to be a 4-1 money line play.
Yeah, I got you.
Louisiana Tech, Hail Mary,
Oh boy.
SMU.
Oh boy. Oh
Yes.
boy. Yeah.
So that was the deciding factor for me to have a negative week in college football as opposed to a really nice, because that would have been my second upset in college of the week. And again, that's why I say all the time, I'll put up like 5 or 6 upsets. I got beat up by Central Michigan, lost a couple others, but had East Carolina, and I would have had Louisiana Tech. That's all I would have needed. I can lose the other 3 or 4. I don't care. All I need is a couple of those in college, and I just lost out. So
There's something to be said about that before we get into the card here, and I'm not a big at all advocate of teasers for sure and parlays, but I will say this: when you sniff out, and I know you like to look for some good long dogs, horses or dogs or whatever the case might happen to be, but when you sniff out some like Louisiana Tech, okay, dogs like that you play on a money line, and you find another couple of dogs like that on a money line, 2 or 3 of them in the same day, and you tie all 3 of them into a parlay,
oh,
that that's a lottery ticket,
that's
okay?
true.
Yes,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right.
You got to do that. And it's nice to kind of do that once every week where you spend a few bucks because you don't even have to spend much. You could just put a couple of
No,
bucks on 3 4-1 shots and it'll be a few $100.
exactly right. But do
Yeah.
it when you're up and you're playing with the man's money. That's the time
Yes.
to do it.
Absolutely.
Right.
So yeah. Again, another positive week in the NFL. So we're doing good there. But let's hope we continue that in college football. The NFL show has already been posted. I did that with Ryan Dunleavy late last night. Now, let's talk college football. And the first game I want to talk about is going to be the Arkansas-Texas A&M game. And this is a game where I like the upset, but I'm not going with the money line, which is about plus 170 or something like that. That's because I'm going with the straight up 5 points, and this is going to be my 5-star pick of the week. So this is the one I like the most. I've been following this series an awful lot over the last few years because they've had some really exciting games in these neutral site matchups. Even when Arkansas was the worst team, which everybody, if you're following Arkansas football, you know how bad they had been. They were still competitive in these Texas A&M neutral site rivalry matchups. Now they're a good football team. Texas A&M's quarterback situation is terrible. I mean, the 2 kids are combined, Calzada and King. They're combined 55% completion percentage and a 6.5 touchdown to interception ratio. I like the fact that if you look at it, they've covered 3 straight in this series. Like I said, I just think that they're on a roll right now. They're playing Georgia next week. I could see Arkansas playing Georgia and just all of a sudden it being a big game. And this is another big game, but I think they're overdue. Let's just put it that way to slay the team that has knocked them off 9 straight times.
Well, this is a big rivalry from their days back, way back into the Southwest Conference, the Big Eight Conference, and now the Big 12 Conference when they did hook together as conference opponents. And I'll say this, I did this game on our podcast and we kind of tore the game down pretty good. And if you go back to the year 2000 and look at Arkansas when they've taken on Southeast Conference opponents, they still get up for those football games. Let me read you the numbers here. Since then, they're 11 and 6 straight up and 13 and 4 against the spread against SEC teams are the Arkansas Razorbacks. A nice factor inside the game, I think that what else works for you is that this is in Jerry's world. Jerry Jones,
Yes.
who is a huge, huge backer of Arkansas. You know,
Yeah.
he's from the university. He supports the program. He's going to have ukus of people there, believe me.
Yeah.
And so, I think that they know that they want to please the boss in this football game, if you will. So
Yeah.
I'm with you. I
And,
like.
and Aggies have some really good players. They got Spiller, the running back. They've got that really good tight end, Widdemeyer, who's one of the top tight ends in the country. But the quarterback situation is just not good enough. And I think with KJ Jefferson starting to get a little bit better with each game, he's a very athletic quarterback that actually can throw the ball a little bit. I think this is a good, strong play, and that's why I'm taking Arkansas plus the 5. Let's talk about another a game that I think is kind of interesting. It's not the big marquee matchup, but it's a game that it's a team that I've really started to that's endeared themselves to me, and that's Michigan State, and they're taking on Nebraska. And we talked about this game last week, the Michigan State Miami game, and I talked about how I liked Michigan State. I wasn't sure if they would win, but I felt it would be a good football game, and it was really more of a not an indictment on Miami, but more of a Michigan State kind of thing. Kenneth Walker has been incredible so far at running back. He's just done a tremendous job. He's been one of the best running backs in the country to start the season. Peyton Thorne has done a solid job at quarterback. They're a 5-point favorite. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about the number based on Nebraska. I mean, the defense has been carrying the Huskers. There's no question about that. And I know Nebraska has owned the series, even though these two teams have not played a whole bunch of times in the recent years, but it's still a dominated Nebraska series. But again, I'm just going to stick with Michigan State. It's one of those things where I'll just keep playing them. They've done well for me the last few weeks. I've cashed in nicely the last couple of weeks. I'm not going to put any big money on them, but it's just one of those things where I'm going to try to ride it as long as I can.
Well, I don't blame you so long as you've been on them from the get-go.
Yeah.
You don't get off a winning horse in that sense. But if you haven't been riding on that horse, it's difficult to hop on the merry-go-round when it's going 50 miles an hour. Okay.
Especially when you're a 5-point favorite now.
Right, and you've missed all those other winners.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's opportune and inopportune times, obviously, to be hopping on football teams. My biggest concern to Michigan State is this: that they just entered the AP Top 25 for the first time since 2019. The last time they did just that, they were favored in their football game, 15 and a half points, and they lost the whole game straight up. I'm just wondering if sometimes you drink the champagne from having, climbed the mountain per se. If that might not be the case for Michigan State this week, where they're changing roles, still trying to protect an undefeated season. And some people that I've talked to feel that Nebraska could be letting down after Oklahoma. My feeling is that was a game of confidence for Nebraska, that to play Oklahoma down to the wire the manner in which they did. So I'm going to be on Scott Frost in this football game, and I'm going to ride him now like you're riding Michigan State. I'm going to ride Scott Frost until he throws me off the horse.
Yeah, that was a very impressive performance by Nebraska against Oklahoma. The thing, though, I'm unsure about Oklahoma, and I think we'll find out this week is there something wrong there, because they struggled with Tulane. Now they've struggled with Nebraska. And I looked at the newsletter. I know that you like Oklahoma, and I like Oklahoma too this week. They've dominated that West Virginia series, so it's a big spread though. But okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt one more week. And if they go ahead and look like the old Oklahoma Sooners, then I think everything's okay. They struggle, and it's another close game, then I think Oklahoma's got some problems to worry about. But as far as Nebraska, that defense, again, has been saving even though they lost. It was almost like a win for Scott Frost, like you
A
said.
moral win, a moral victory, right?
Yes, and
Yes.
he needs a moral victory
Yes.
because he's trying to hold on to his job. Okay, now we're going to go out west for Stanford and UCLA. And here's another team that I've actually decided to jump on recently. And so I'm going to give them another week, and that's Stanford. They covered for me last week in their matchup against Vanderbilt. And after, bottom line was when they beat USC, I was like, okay, well, let's see what they got here. And what I really liked about Stanford, more than anything, is that I don't think it was like smoke and mirrors, because Tanner McKee, once he became the starting quarterback at Stanford, he's been the difference. You know, he's a top recruit. Stanford gets those big time recruits out there, and he's done a really good job completing 71% of his passes, 5 touchdowns, no picks. They've also dominated this series against UCLA, and you know how I am when when one team dominates the series and the other team's the favorite. So you know how I am on with that situation. Throw in the fact this is only the second time UCLA is a road favorite under Chip Kelly. Only the second time. They're 0-6 against the spread in their last 6 as a road favorite. They've only won once in their last 6 as a road favorite. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and take Stanford in this one, getting 5. And I'll probably just take the 3-star instead of going with the money line, which is about plus 165.
I'm a little bit torn in the football game, and I know we took a side to UCLA in the write-up of the game, and we did largely because they fit inside what we call the smart box in the newsletter. And the smart box is simply a report just to kind of keep people attuned to what situations are noteworthy on the football card this week. And the situation in this particular game is the fact that teams that are on the road in their 4th football game of the season, and the role that UCLA is in, do really rather quite well. And I don't want to fade the smart box, because when you start picking and you start choosing,
Can't do that.
you can't. Then you're pulling rabbits out of
100%.
the hat. Exactly right. You know, you have to ride who brought you to the dance, okay? Or go to with who brought you to the dance. We'll talk about riding her later, okay?
Yeah,
Right.
that's a different show.
Right. Yes, it is. But in this case, okay, because UCLA resides inside the smart box, it drove me away from Stanford. Now I can make good cases for Stanford here. Like first of all, you're on them from the get-go. Number 2, Stanford brings to the table a powerful angle, okay? And I ride these angles, and I do these things almost all the time. And basically, short and simple, you got a home underdog that scored 40 or more points in back-to-back games. Those teams play with a passion. That's what Stanford will be in this particular role here this week. But again, because I'm in print, because I do the smart box, I cannot fade the smart box, if you know what I'm saying.
And by the way, speaking of, motivated and humming along the way Stanford is, they're even going to be more motivated this week because they are going to play at home in their home stadium for the first time in I think it's like 10 months, because the COVID situation knocked them out with 4 road games last year.
Yep.
They started the season with 3 road games, which is extremely rare. Power 5 teams normally don't have back-to-back road games to start the season, let alone 3 road games to start the season. So they're coming into this one. The fans, look, I don't know how. I know California is California, so they're probably going to be limited in some capacity with the fan base there. But who's ever there, they're probably going to be pretty loud.
I'm sure they will be, and I'm sure Stanford will be pumped to the max. And here, again, if the smart box wasn't in play, I wouldn't be at all surprised if Stanford upends UCLA for the situation and the way the game sets up. But again, I can't fade that smart box.
That's it. And if you want to know all of the teams on the Smart Box, that's why you got to purchase the newsletter. And don't forget, you can see right there on our little mini laptop we have, all you have to use is the bonus code PRIME. Call that number there, the toll-free number, 321-7777, and you'll receive that discount. It's a $10 discount. And as we've been saying for the past couple of weeks, the sooner you do it, the better. This way you can take advantage of as many of those newsletters in this package deal all the way through to the Super Bowl for both pro and college football. Okay, now we're going to go to one of my other 3-star picks of the week. And this is going to be just like a plain and simple kind of 3-star. That's Liberty. And I'm just bringing them up at this point in time. I know it's not a huge matchup, but here's something that I think sometimes, you look at all these different trends and all these stats and this, that, and the other thing. Well, let's just look at the simple one, and that is Liberty has covered 16 of 19 games. That is amazing. And they had a tremendous season last season, and it's almost like you kind of get the feeling that people kind of forgot about that. Well, no, everybody's back from that team, including their fabulous quarterback, Willis, who's just dynamic runner, really good under the radar passer. The defense is solid. Syracuse, I don't know, yes, it's nice that they won a couple of games. They are a good defensive team. Okay. They have a good front seven. That's the thing where maybe they could keep it low scoring. Maybe they even backdoor cover. But I can't go away from Liberty. 16 out of 19. I took them as one of my top picks a couple of weeks ago against Troy, and they came through. So I see no reason as a 6-point favorite not to back them again.
I'm real high on this Liberty team with you as well, Greg. I'm a big fan of Hugh Freeze, and just look at the results, what he's done with this program, where he's taken them from and where he's taken them to. Just tremendous job that he's done. And two things about this. Number one, their defense is really, really smothering opponents this year. He's always had an offense, and now his defense is really coming to the party. 234 yards a game, 11 points a game. That couples with a really, really potent offense. The other thing is Hugh Freeze is famous as a cripple shooter. He just beats the snot out of bad football teams.
Okay.
Okay. And I think Syracuse fits that bill. Yes, they might be 2-1 this year, but come and visit me at the end of the season, and we'll see where Syracuse is.
Yeah.
Dino Babers is not a real good coach. There's a huge coaching edge in this game to Liberty, and I think it's a fair play. I do like Liberty with you in this football contest.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Babers was this hot commodity just a couple of years ago, and there was talk about him getting the Notre Dame job. I mean, the USC job. And it's just, look, I don't know what happened to him there. Sometimes it's just a bad match. You're in the wrong part of the country. Maybe you should be back with a group of 5 schools, whatever the case may be. That's probably what'll happen. He'll probably leave Syracuse at some point, maybe at the end of the year, and he'll end up with another reclamation project. Look at Hugh Freeze. That's what he's trying to do. Some of the great coaches do that. Frank Solich did it at Ohio. So I could see that happening to Dino Babers, but it's not working out for him at Syracuse.
No, it's not.
And by the way, Liberty beat Syracuse last year in Syracuse by 17 points. Okay, now I wanted to mention this game because it's another kind of under the radar game. It's a good matchup for a group of 5 schools, and that's UAB at Tulane. Now, Tulane was one of those upsets I told you about that I lost last week, and they were just decimated by Ole Miss. That Ole Miss offense is just amazing. I think, what did they score? 70 points in that game. But I'm willing to put that aside, and I think Tulane will. It wasn't a conference matchup. Now they're taking on a UAB school, which is definitely more their competition. And what's interesting is it's their home opener. It's the first time they get an opportunity to play since the hurricane. And that should help out with the fans and motivation. They're only a 3-point favorite in this spot. They've also covered 7 of the last 8 as a home favorite. Meanwhile, UAB will be opening a new stadium next week. So that is probably all the talk of UAB about how everybody's excited about the new stadium next week. And who are they playing next week? But Liberty at home. So maybe this is also a little look ahead kind of deal. And I think Tulane will get right back into the winning column. And it's only a 3-point spread.
Yeah, I'm a big Willie Fritz fan. And again, we talked about Hugh Freeze being a cripple shooter. Well, Bill Clark at UAB has done a terrific job with this program.
Yes, he has.
Yes, bringing him back out of a coma, okay, if you will.
The death penalty, basically.
It wasn't a penalty, but it was, they gave up on the program.
Yeah.
So. But anyway, he brings him back. He's done a terrific job with the program here, but he also beats up on bad teams. Almost 80% of his wins have come against losing football teams, and this Tulane football team will be in a bowl game this year. Willie Fritz does a great job recruiting. You don't see him taking bad beats, often 2 times on the nose, doing just that. And for the win situation is what it is, 3 points at home. they are the right side of this football game.
Okay, now we're going to have a matchup, which normally, if you're going to tell me there's an SEC team against an ACC team, I'm going to take the SEC team, more often than not. But I'm going to take Boston College as a 2-point dog in this one at home against Missouri. I just overall think they're a better team. I know they haven't proved it yet because they haven't played anybody yet. The competition has been very weak. I am also willing to forgive the performance last week by the kid Grosel because he came in for Jerkovich, who got injured at quarterback. And if you look at Grosel's history, he's had some really good performances for the program over the last several years in this type of role where he can come in for a few starts and he can actually play pretty well for a backup. So I think he's going to be okay. I don't expect him to play as kind of stale as he was last week. He was 7 of 15 for 59 yards. But he did have a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown with 1 pick. But I like what Jeff Hafley is doing at Boston College. I think they're headed in the right direction. And I also like the trend that matches up perfectly because Boston College has covered 6 out of the last 7 as a home dog, while Missouri is 2-9 against the spread in their last 11 as a road favorite. So I'm taking BC in this one, getting the 2. And by the way, next week, BC will be matched up at Clemson. So if they win this game, then that game next week becomes that much bigger.
Well, I'm going to be on the other side of this football game, and not strong, but basically because I think I do like Elijah Drinkwitz, the head coach at Missouri. I think he's a terrific young head coach. He's going to take Missouri in the right direction they need to go to. And you look at where BC is this year. Yes, they're 3-0, but my goodness, they beat Sisters of the Poor.
Yeah.
Those three victories are against. Let's just call them what they are. They are Colgate High School, UMass High School, and Temple High School.
Yeah. I don't even know if they've woken up yet, to tell you the truth.
I don't know, but I do know that Missouri does have a powerful offense here. They're averaging over 530 yards a game this football season here. So this isn't going to be like anything BC has seen yet thus far this football season. And for me, in a win situation, minus the 2, I'm going to ride with the Tigers in the contest.
And keep in mind, too, BC, you think of them as a running team and an offensive line, but they have a pair of really exciting receivers in Zay Flowers and Kobe White. So now, if Grosel can get him the ball, that's because he's going to have to. Again, that's going to be the difference, is whether or not that backup quarterback can revert to some of his, because he actually, I think, broke the all-time BC single-game passing record last year, I believe, in relief. I think it was a losing effort, but he threw for like 550 yards against Virginia, might have been. And their pass defense hasn't improved much, Virginia. Okay, now let's start talking about some of these upsets that I like. Now, this one is one of those games where it's sort of like the Central Michigan upset. I'm not really sure they'll pull it off, but I'm going to give it a chance because I kind of really like the game, but I don't want to invest a ton of money on Tennessee. Because I'm not sure exactly, because this is the barometer game, the real serious barometer game for where they stand on the Josh Heupel, and it's also their first road game. But I think it's a decent spot, especially if you want to just go with the spread, because they're 4-0-1 against the spread versus Florida as a dog of 14 or more. And also the Gators, they've been favored by 23 and 29 this year. They didn't cover either game. Now they're favored by 19, and they're coming off the Alabama game, which I thought they played great. I thought that they were going to win that game. I think if they get that 2-point conversion, they do win the game, but they just couldn't complete it. Maybe there's a little bit of a carryover. I think they're good enough to not kind of have that complete hangover, because they understand there's still a shot at getting back at Alabama in the SEC championship game, but you're not going to do it if you lose to Tennessee. So I think Tennessee, more than likely, sure, Florida probably wins this game, but this will be one of those games that I'll just throw into my pool of upsets, because I do think Tennessee is going to keep this close going into the fourth quarter.
Well, I'm going to go so far as to say this, Greg. We talked about those big money line dogs. This might be one that you might want to look at Tennessee, for a couple of reasons. Number one, teams let down seriously after taking on Alabama or a defending national champion, which they fit both bills. And you take a look here at this particular situation. When you play Alabama close, don't win but get the money in a football game like they did, The teams really struggle. They're 8-19 to the spread their next game if that defense allows more than 21 points a game, which Florida's does. I like what Josh Heupel's doing with this Tennessee football team. Look at the numbers across the board. I mean, my goodness, drastic improvement offensively in every category as opposed to what they were before here. This game has you ask yourself sometimes, does it pass the smell test? This smells pretty good to me. I think this is a real bad flat spot letdown here for Florida, and I'm with you on Tennessee in the game.
And by the way, I also think Tennessee has the all important quarterback edge because Hendon Hooker, the Virginia Tech transfer, he's now, in my mind, he should be the guy. I mean, I'm a Michigan guy, and I always thought that Milton should have transferred to a Group of 5 school. I think he should have went to a lower school, been the starter, played the lesser competition, and he could have been happy as a starter. But he wanted to, ego. You stay in the group in the Power 5, and this is what you get. You're just not good enough in the Group of 5. And now Hendon Hooker took over as the quarterback. I think that's where it's going to stand. And Emory Jones, this is the shocker that they almost beat Alabama, and Emory Jones really wasn't all that great. He's had 2 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Yeah, he runs the ball a little bit, but they also have some really good running backs, so I don't think it's necessary. The other quarterback they have runs better. I don't know why they don't throw the other quarterback in. Matter of fact, that's who I'm scared of if I take Tennessee this week, is that they go to the other kid.
I was reading where he's going to do just that. Maybe not start him, but to give him a lot of or even equal time. They want to see exactly what they've got there in the situation. So are they disappointed in Emory Jones? Yes. And that you wouldn't, if you were enthralled with what he's doing, you wouldn't even think about that. But we're going to see that other quarterback in this game.
Okay, now, Big Ten matchup, and that's Notre Dame. Kind of a Big Ten matchup. It's Notre Dame and Wisconsin because Notre Dame, you kind of look at them now as an ACC team because of their basketball school. But if they were really a football, not an independent, I would kind of think they're more of a Big Ten team myself. But anyway, they're playing Wisconsin in Chicago. So this is a neutral field situation. Wisconsin's about a 6.5-point favorite. And this is actually going to be one of my top picks. This is my 4-star pick of the week. I love the matchup that Jake Cohn, the former Wisconsin quarterback, gets to, and he could say all he wants about it. It's another game. Yeah, okay. He got hurt last year. Mertz took over. Mertz hasn't been a good quarterback. He's that sexy, big-armed kind of young, look at this guy, and he just hasn't played very well. It's Wisconsin is back to being, they have to run the football and play great defense. But Cohn has actually been pretty decent for Notre Dame. I know he's had his hiccups, but he's not a big-time guy, but he's actually been pretty effective all told. And I just think when you're giving up 7 points in this matchup, Wisconsin is not going to score, a boatload of points in my mind in this matchup. Every point is important. And even if Notre Dame loses, I think this is definitely going to be a 1-score game.
Well, you hit it on the head about Jack Cohn in this football game here. Yes, he was the starting quarterback at Wisconsin, and he used his graduate transfer to come to Notre Dame. So you'd think maybe the players in Wisconsin might have something to say about that, leaving the program and giving up on it. But you hit it on the head. He lost that starting job at Wisconsin to Graham Mertz, okay,
right.
And that doesn't set well with him, an athlete like that, who is now starting at Notre Dame. He had an injured finger a game or 2 back, but he's healthy here again once again. What jumps out to me in this football game is the pedigree angle here. You're talking about a Notre Dame football team. I was stunned at the line. I really truly was. I thought this game was going to open pick, maybe Wisconsin 1 or 2. It's being priced like the games at Wisconsin, for goodness sake. But it's not. It's in Chicago, and there's going to be more of a flavor for Notre Dame in Chicago than there is in Wisconsin. That's one thing. The other thing is people are forgetting Notre Dame has won 18 straight regular season football games, and now they're dressing up as a 6.5-point underdog because they looked a little soft defensively. They're still 3-0 in the football season, and they're playing a 500 Wisconsin team. I think this is a terrible line, and I'm with you. I like Notre Dame in the game.
Yeah, when the line came out, I thought it was going to be 3, and the first thing I did was circle Notre Dame, and then I started thinking more as the week went on, and I was like, yeah, okay, but and Notre Dame, they did struggle against Florida State, and it wasn't pretty against Purdue, and Yeah, Wisconsin's got one of the best defenses in college football. Jim Leonard, I think, is still a rising star. He'll be a head coach in college or the NFL at some point. But then again, I went back to, well, wait a second. Brian Kelly, 36-21 against the spread as a dog coach. And all of a sudden, yeah, now it's like, yeah, they're kind of disrespecting Notre Dame. Like you said, this is a team that's been to the playoffs. Yeah, they're disappointed when they go to the playoffs, but this isn't the playoffs. This is
No,
Wisconsin. This isn't Alabama.
this
So
is a game that gets them to the playoffs, is what it
yes,
is.
yep.
Yes.
So we're on the same page there. Okay, now here's an upset, like a definite upset. Now this is one of my double digit upsets, and I think this is pretty legit. Where I know the points are valid. I'm not saying they're not, but I also think there's a possibility that Maryland, might be caught here because they're not used to being in this spot. They're about what 14, 15 point favorite in this one. And what I really like about Kent State in this potential upset, or the fact that they're getting as many points as they are, is the fact that they've got a quarterback with moxie. I really like this Dustin Crum kid. They're an explosive type of offensive team when they play against teams outside of like Texas A&M and Iowa. And I don't put Maryland in that group because they're not. I know it's been a nice start to the season, and two of his little brothers looked really good, but I just think that this is a spot that's going to be tough for Maryland because they play Iowa next week. They had Illinois last week. Here's the trend that I noticed in the newsletter, which is pretty damn impressive against Maryland. Maryland 1-17 straight up and against the spread in their last 18 off a conference win. That is pretty impressively bad.
Yeah, that's a pretty salty number to say the least. And it applies in a situation that you'd want it to apply in here, in this conference sandwich, where this is a bad situation for any team in a situation like this. But in here comes Kent, a football team who, by the way, you just might see Dustin Crum wearing a National Football League jersey next year.
Possible.
Yes, this kid is really, really good. So this becomes a huge game for Kent, and it becomes a look-ahead, letdown type game for Maryland. I think the handicap is clearly Kent in this football game.
Yeah, and I also like the job that Sean Lewis has been doing as the head coach at Kent, because this was a really bad program for quite a few years, and he's really turned them around. Now, it helps that he's got the kid Crum at quarterback. There's no question about that. But it also helps. It's a good combination. You've got a nice young rising coach. You've got the quarterback, and it's really been effective for. And look, schedule-wise, this is it for Kent State. They've already played their two big non-conference games. This is the third of their three. If they don't upset Maryland, they're done for the season. It's back to just playing MAC football the rest of the year. So one more chance to pull off a big upset, unless, of course, it's in a bowl game, which I doubt they'll get a shot. But maybe. And by the way, Kent, third in the nation in turnover margin. That's pretty important as well. Now let's go to another upset that I'm going to ride with, and I failed last week. And by the way, this is not an indictment of North Carolina, because I like North Carolina. I like Sam Howell. I like Mac Brown. It's just the timing. And look, Virginia had the lead at halftime, so things were going well, but something is seriously wrong with Virginia's defense. Seriously wrong. And I did not expect Virginia's defense to be that bad. I expected Armstrong to have the game that he had. I didn't expect, if I would have looked at the box score and saw just Virginia's score and Armstrong's stats, and hey, all right, we got to win. And then I would have looked at Howell's stats. I would have gone, oh, I definitely got to win. But somehow still they lost because Virginia's defense was atrocious. But Georgia Tech's defense is not. Jeff Collins, it's about defense. They've turned over the offense. No longer, it's been a couple of years now. They're now throwing the ball, no more triple option. They really like this quarterback, Jordan Yates. He's done a good job. They got a couple of nice receivers in McGowan and Carter. He's able to spread it around. And I also like the fact that they're the fifth-ranked defense in passing in the nation. They've got a load of really good corners on the team. And now you're facing Sam Howell in North Carolina, and that's what he wants to do. He wants to throw the football. They have a nice running back, the Tennessee transfer. Don't get me wrong, they can balance it out. But I just got a feeling that Georgia Tech is a 13-point dog, is going to keep this one close with their defense, and maybe, just maybe, Jeff Collins gets his signature win at Georgia Tech.
Well, Jeff Collins is one of these coaches that I really, really admire. Greg, going back to the hire that they made with him in the beginning. Now, when he came there the first year, the shelf was really, really empty, and really not a lot was expected. But he's really making this football program become impressive here. I think, with you, Virginia is a football program that maybe opened up too early, like a racehorse got out to too big of a lead, and a racehorse that stopped to read the press clippings and is getting caught up in themselves here right now. This is not a spot where I like Virginia at all. In fact, I think Virginia is beatable in a football game like this. And while
You
I
mean
don't
North
like
Carolina?
yes, right. While I don't like laying big points in football games here, I don't like Virginia at all.
Yeah, because keep in mind, North Carolina, they were a road favorite once this year, and they lost to Virginia Tech in the first game of the season. They are 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 as a road favorite. So last week they beat Virginia, but they did that at home. So now they're on. And by the way, this is not a true road game, but it is a road game. They're away. It's going to be in a neutral site. It's at the Georgia Dome, I believe. So you probably get a decent amount of North Carolina fans there. I understand that, but still, the bottom. Georgia Tech, by the way, 4-0-1 against the spread in their last 5 neutral site games, and maybe more importantly, 3-0 in the stats this year for Georgia Tech. That includes Clemson in their last matchup. So
I like that in the stats, Greg. That's like
that's I'm learning.
there we go. I do a newsletter called the Midweek Alert, and I'm going to send you a copy of it. The Midweek Alert is the daily racing form of football newsletters because it allows you to go in and look at the stats game by game by game, opponent by opponent, head to head. And like I say, it's like reading a racing form. And you can find out which teams are good and which teams earned their wins and which ones did not. You look at some teams that are undefeated here right now, but they've been out-yarded
Yes.
in every football game they played. That's not a good sign.
No.
And other teams, when they're losing but yet winning the yards, you want to make cases for teams like that. So I like the fact you're looking inside the stats, and I'll send you a midweek alert this week.
And by the way, Jeff Collins, 4-0-1 against the spread as dogs between 10 and 20 points. Okay, and then finally, the last one on the marker is another upset pick. This is Utah State and Boise. I do not like what I see from Boise State so far this year. I did not like the way they played against Central Florida, and I definitely did not like the way they played against Oklahoma State because they let that running back run for over 200 yards. He didn't do anything the first couple of games. He had carries. He didn't run the ball. He couldn't run the ball against Tulsa, and Boise State let him run for over 200 yards. I love the way that Blake Anderson has gotten Utah State off to a great start. And this is a perfect example of why I love college football transfers. Because with Logan Bonner, the quarterback at Utah State, if there was no transfer rule, he'd be, sharing back, reps as a 1A quarterback at Arkansas State. Nobody would ever hear of Logan Bonner. But he gets to transfer to Utah State to a better school, better conference. And he's already doing a great job for Utah State because once Love left, they were nothing, Utah State's passing game. It was, went from this to that. But now Bonner gets there. Calvin Tyler's done a great job in the backfield. Devin Tompkins has been explosive as a receiver. So the offense has been big time. I think they've been a lot more exciting than Boise State. And keep in mind, Utah State, get this, 3-0 straight up and in the stats this year.
Exactly.
And they won outright as a 17-point dog and a 9-point dog. And again, they're getting no respect. They're a 9-point dog again.
Only because the name is Boise State on the uniform, okay? That's the only reason why. And Boise State is down this year, down big time this year. They have no running game at all. They're averaging 1.7 yards per rush. You can't do that in college football and expect to win football games. Now they're going to have to go on the road here into a very well-coached team in Utah State. I'm a big, big, big time fan of Blake Anderson. I love them at Arkansas State, what he did with that program. He brought them from nowhere to where they went 7 bowl games in a row. He deserves this job, this opportunity, and he's doing a terrific job doing just that. I've got them winning this game straight up on the money line.
Awesome. All right. It was simpatico there with Utah
There you go.
State in this matchup. And that would break Boise State's 14 straight conference opener winning streak. They are 1-2 straight up and in the stats this year, Boise State. So
Yep.
that's just so again, you could rest comfortably if you want with the 9, or maybe have a little bit more stress in your stomach and take the outright upset like me and Mark are. And what are they? I think they're close to 3-1, right, on the money line. Yeah, 275.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe like 2.5, but 275 would be right. Yes,
Yeah.
right.
All right, so that's going to do it. Now, again, I'm going to post up all of the picks at the end of the show. I'll have some of the boards up so you can see exactly what we did last week and what we're doing for the rest of the games that I haven't talked about, and also throw in some trends for each game or some of the games. So, but you want all the trends, you want all the information, 1,000% of the information. Then that's why you have to purchase the newsletter. Going over to playbooksports.com. If you do that, you dial that number there, the toll-free number 321-7777. Use the bonus code PRIME. You get the $10 discount as well. What else is going on, Mark?
Well, we've gotten off to a really, really good start, knock on wood, this football season here. We haven't lost a pro football game, and college football is going good as well. So whatever we did in the offseason, and largely we did it, Greg, because we got ready with the Playbook Football Preview Guide magazine. And I think it all comes together not only with our work in the magazine, but also because of this transfer portal and all these returning people coming back, these starters and returners coming back in college football. This is a really, really good year for talent in the world of college football. And the more talented they are, the more handicapable they are. It's just like handicapping the horses. The better graded stakes horses, you like handicapping those guys as opposed to the claimers. And that's what we've got going on in college football this year.
Yeah, and I think that already seeing Alabama's vulnerable, seeing that Ohio State's vulnerable, I'm getting a feeling that all of a sudden maybe this is going to be one of those years where we might have ourselves, maybe a team or two in the Final Four that nobody expects. And I think
that's not a Mount Rushmore team.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
I think that could be a lot of fun. Oh,
yes, it would.
I did want to ask you one more game, and it slipped my mind, and that is the Michigan-Rutgers game. And I wanted to ask you about that one because of the fact that I did 2 shows this week. I do a weekly show at Ryan Dunleavy, the Rutgers alum. We started doing the Rutgers shows this year, and I was wondering about it. Is this going to be a popular show or not? It's Rutgers. It's not Michigan. And we get a lot of traffic on the Rutgers shows. And this week with Michigan, there were a lot of people going back and forth in the message boards about, Rutgers, who do you think you are? And Michigan is, and I'm trying to let everybody know and remind everybody that I'm a Michigan Rutgers fan. I am the 50-50, I'm not like a homer. I'm going to actually be, really good down the middle and tell you what I think is what I think. Not that I don't already do that, but it gives you more credit, gives me more credibility that you don't have to second guess me regarding that. But I figured I'd ask you straight out. Again, they're a 20 to 21 point dog. The line kind of started up, went down a little. Now it's back up again. And my prediction was, I think it's going to be a 1-score game early in the fourth quarter, at some point in the fourth quarter. And Michigan wins, but Rutgers covers.
I agree 100%. Greg Schiano's done a great job with this Rutgers football team here. They're for real. They're not Rutgers of old. I've been wrong on Michigan a lot this year, but I don't feel I'm going to be wrong on them this particular week. This is a homecoming game for Michigan, and they're laying 20 points in a football game. The reason I'm calling that out is homecoming favorites in college football do not fare well, and the main reason they don't is simply because homecoming week, the parents come to the campus. The kids are all entertaining the parents, showing them this, doing this, doing this. They're not concentrating on football like they're supposed to be doing.
Okay.
And you've got that working against you with the Michigan play here as well. So I think Michigan comes back to the pack, And I think Rutgers proves to the Big Ten that they are for real.
And that is really why most of the homecoming games are usually against teams that the program believes are going to win, because they know
Correct.
the kids are going to be distracted.
Right. Exactly right. So, they're cupcake games in a sense. Now, when they scheduled it, it's still Rutgers.
Sure.
Okay, they could have scheduled a non-con, but they chose what they felt was a weak Big Ten opponent here in Rutgers. But that may prove to be a mistake.
And look, it's not like, and you just said it about Michigan. It's not that I don't think Michigan has turned the corner a little bit, because I do. There is no doubt in my mind that this is a different Michigan team. And it's because of what is you can see is that Jim Harbaugh has decided, I have to go back to what was successful for me, my formula at Stanford. I have to run the football. Eventually, I have to get 5-star recruiting offensive linemen like I did at Stanford. Right now, he's got 4 stars, but I got to get 5-star guys soon enough. I have to do it by defense and by offensive line and running the football. And already it's amazing. They couldn't run the football for crap last year. Now they're the number 1 rushing offense in college football. And I also love the fact how he cleaned house of all the old, coaches that were just out of rhythm with
Out of touch.
out of touch. And he brings in the kid from Baltimore, his brother's one of his coaches to run the defense. And I was paying attention as a fan. The kids were so much happier during the spring, and they were having fun again, and you could see on the playing field. So I think when McCarthy takes over in a couple of years, this offense could be really special. But even right now, I think they're definitely heading in the right direction. I think they're going to be now finally for real again. But of course, people have to see it before they're going to give it to Jim Harbaugh, because everybody's trashed him for the last few years. And they're not just going to give that up until he proves it with at least 1 or 2 big wins.
I'm getting vibes from listeners out there, people who read our products, that they think Michigan is going to give Ohio State all they want this year. Maybe they might.
Possible.
I mean, yeah, they've improved a lot. There's still a lot of football to be played.
Yes.
And, Michigan's gone one way and Ohio State the other. So they're never going to be this far apart as they are right now, but it may widen a little bit. But it's nice to see that when they do play, we may have a competitive game this year.
That would be nice. Sort of like Alabama-Auburn, too. You get those rivalries, and you'd like to see them close. You don't like to see the total dominant. I know when Michigan was dominating Ohio State all those years, it was nice. You want to beat your rival, but it was, you just didn't really get up for it like you used to. And I got to feel that in some way, Ohio State fans are kind of feeling the same way. You don't want your rivals to be bad. You want them to be good. So when you play a rival, it means something.
It's competitive. Sure. Yeah. Exactly.
All right, Mark. Great job as always. I appreciate it. We did double duty today. The horse racing show with John Hardoon is also available on the website right now if you want to check that out. And we'll talk more college football next Friday and every Friday. Shows should be posted early evenings on every Friday now. That's our new schedule. Hopefully that'll be enough time for everybody to check it out, to get your wagers in for Saturday. And we'll talk to you again next week, Mark.
Hey, Greg, enjoy the games. Be well and stay safe.